Hello everybody, welcome back to Punk Write. My name is Smee. As a high school teacher, I spent a lot of time reading student work. And now that I'm sending out my own manuscript for a second round of beta reading, it's nice to have the shoe on the other foot. In this episode of Punk Write, stick around and we're going to take a look at some of the reasons why, if you are interested in writing, you need to be reading authors' work in progress. Stick around. I'd like to start by just making some sort of admission here. I have had a hell of a time trying to find good beta readers. Once you find them, hold on to them and make a little community, because good feedback and good beta readers are not necessarily the easiest thing to come by. They need to fit your personality, they need to fit the genre that you're writing in, and they need to have a little bit of experience that is parallel to your own experience so that you're not working above or below where you are in your own writing process. I've checked out a couple of sites that I've had some good success with. If you're interested in searching for beta readers, you might want to go to a place like Critters, which is more of a science fiction oriented type of platform that allows you to find people who are like-minded or writing in the same genre. And I've also had very good experience with Goodreads. Goodreads has a couple of chat rooms where you can connect with people and leave copies of your manuscript or excerpts of your manuscript so people can tag on if they're interested. I'll reiterate though, it's been a slow process. I've been working on it for months. I've found people of different ages. I've found people who have shown various levels of interest and, most importantly, various levels of completion of your manuscript. There's one guy that I've hooked up with who says that he only gets, on average, about 40% of his manuscript read by his readers. That's not great if you're looking for a whole developmental view on your manuscript. So you gotta have a little bit of patience, and if you find someone who's gonna get you through the entire document, put them on your list and leave them. But the point of today's video is about your role as an author in terms of participating in beta reading. If you want your manuscript read and taken seriously, you need to participate on the other end of that. And the point that I want to bring forth today is that if you take that part of the process seriously, as an author, you can learn an extraordinary amount about your own craft, your own strengths, and your own weaknesses by looking at what other individuals are doing in their own writing. Of course, you have to consider that some of the manuscripts that you're going to read as a beta reader are in different levels of development. And the perspectives that I'm going to give today come from after reading the entire manuscript. So it's more of like a developmental perspective on how they're progressing with their work. And I want to remind you, these are 7 things that I have interpreted that I look for in terms of how I can apply them in my own writing and things that I know that I need to take care of in my own work to make my story more effective. Number 1. Okay, the first one is about the most important part of your book, which is the beginning. The opening scene really needs to grab me. Is that if I don't get you in the first 1 or 2 sentences, then I don't feel like I'm doing the most effective job as a writer. The idea of that hook is to bring you into the story. And that story is going to start, of course, with the first couple of sentences, but you need to continue that in the first scene. Is it action-based? Does it have a strong exposition of characters? Does it do enough to present at least some semblance of the conflict that you're going to encounter? And does it give me a little bit of information about the world that I'm immersed in? These are all important details that you should try to accomplish in the first scene of your writing. 2. The second issue that I've run into in reading some of these manuscripts is that I don't feel like some of the authors necessarily have a great understanding of the story that they want to tell. Now, this might sound a little bit pedantic, but the story is what matters. It's not about the series of events. It's not about a plot. It can be just about characters, but characters only work if they're immersed in some sort of conflict. That conflict is what gives you the story. And I don't think this matters if you're a pantser or a plotter. You should have a very clear idea about where your story is going, in particular, where it's going to end. I know some writers might disagree and they're just going to write and flow with this as a pantser, but I still think that you have some kind of inclination about the ending of the story or where you want your character to end up or grow over that period. If you do not have this clear as an author, I would suggest that you clarify this and even go back and take a look at some of the traditional plot structures or story structures to help you plan how you're going to put your story together. 3. The third point has to do with the point of view. And I've just made a previous video on this that I've posted last week. Oh, my cat's coming, hold on. Okay. See you later. Clarifying the point of view that you want to tell your story in is hugely important. In a few of the manuscripts that I've gotten, the points of view are not necessarily clear. It's important to decide as a preliminary step, how do you want to tell your story? From what angle do you want to tell your story? Once you've decided on that, try not to mix those up and go back and forth. This is very confusing and jarring for the author. Stick to the points of view that are going to work for your characters and leave it at that. I've posted another video that explores points of view, and if you're interested in learning more about that, you can click on the link right here. 4. Ooh, had to take a break for this one. It's Saturday night, you know. 5. 6. The 5th and 6th point that I want to talk about are kind of related because they have to do with characters and character motives. But those character motives are usually somehow related to the conflicts of your story. And the sooner that you can bring this out and give me some sort of perspective on who I'm dealing with and who's causing the problems, who's going to solve the problems, I'm going to be more readily engaged in your story. People want to be a bit parsimonious with the information they give out, and you have to find a balance. You want to give enough information so that I know what's going on as a reader, but you don't want to give it all away at the start. And so when you think about the characters and what drives them in the conflict, maybe you can also think and consider about a couple of key points. What is the relationship between the protagonist and the antagonist? What is their story that drives the overall story? Give me some backstory about each character so that I understand what motivates them. What are their internal conflicts? What are the external conflicts that are driving them? All of these, if you can put them together in the right way, you're going to have a little bit more of a compelling start to your story. 7. And the last point I want to talk about is the idea of pacing. But this is not necessarily as much about the writing of the manuscript as it is about the editing and the editing down of the manuscript. Before you send it out to read, you should do a final read yourself and make sure that you have only what is necessary in the story. Be frugal with your sentences. Include only those that advance the story. This goes for dialogue as well. Every sentence should move the story forward in some way. And again, this is an issue that comes to editing. Edit down. As Stephen King said, you should have about 10% less in your second manuscript than you did when you first started. And the way I write, I would say even more than that. I cut down about 15%. And everything I cut out, I just feel better and cleaner. It's like some catharsis. I can just get all of that crap off of the page and make it clean and beautiful. Simple is good. Well, that's about all I have for you today. And again, this is not an exhaustive list. There are all kinds of things that you're going to encounter in manuscripts. But these are some of the things that I have reflected on that I want to look at in other people's writing to see how I'm doing it myself. It's easy to critique, it's hard to perform. Thanks for joining us here on Punk Write. And if you enjoyed the episode, feel free to like the video. You may subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. And until next time, you know what to do. Just write, Punk Write.